It has been 4 months since I got my GH5 and Speedbooster XL. And since then, I've used it extensively for my vlogs, work, and pretty much anything photo related. So I feel it's time I give my final thoughts on this amazing camera. Before I begin, I would just like to say that this video is all about practical application. I will be talking about how the GH5 and Speedbooster XL performs during an actual shoot. If you are only interested in image quality and ISO performance, then you'll want to check out part 1 instead. The link is in the description below. And now that that's out of the way, let's begin with the review. I will be reviewing the GH5 in 3 categories: handling, reliability, and versatility. So first up, handling. I'm very impressed by the way the GH5 handles. It feels light and very comfortable even in my giant bare hands. And the ergonomics is great. Everything is placed conveniently. And you can even start recording a video by pressing the shutter button. Why none of the other camera manufacturers are doing this is a question that I will never know the answer to. The only issue I have is balance. It's not so much a problem if you are using native lenses, but I'm using the Speedbooster XL. So all my lenses are full frame lenses. And full frame lenses can get really big and heavy. This really isn't the camera's fault, as the GH5 was never designed to work with full frame lenses natively, but I thought it's something worth mentioning. Moving on, we have reliability. One of my biggest fears is having a camera fail on me during a job. This has happened to me in the past, and so I know how important reliability is. And I can safely say that the GH5 is a reliable camera. I was shooting some interviews for a client, and shooting in DCI 4K 10-bit 422 150 megabits per second at 24p in Vlog, I was able to record 3 20-minute long interviews back to back without the camera overheating or stopping suddenly. And then I shot an event at a club. And just like before, I used the same motion picture format and quality. Only this time, instead of a few long clips, it was a ton of short clips, each with a duration of about 30 seconds. And again, the GH5 ran smoothly without any sudden stops or overheating. Battery life is fantastic. For the interview job, I only needed 1 battery for the entire shoot. The club event was much longer, and so I needed 2 batteries instead. For comparison, if I was using the A7S, I would probably need 2 to 3 batteries just for the interview job. Sadly, the autofocusing performance is hit or miss. For video, I only use manual focus, so it's not really a big deal. But taking photos of sports or any fast action stuff is a big problem. To be fair, I'm only using the Speedbooster XL and adapted full frame lenses. So maybe native lenses might perform better, but I wouldn't know. And lastly, for reliability, I would like to talk a little bit about the low light performance of the GH5. Whatever horror stories you heard about the GH5's low light performance is greatly exaggerated. You see, it was dark in the club, and I was using the Canon 24-70 f2.8 version 2. Combined with the Speedbooster XL, I rarely had to shoot above 1600 ISO. And just so you're wondering, I was adhering to the 180-degree shutter angle. Now, I'm not saying that the GH5 is a low light camera. What I'm saying is, depending on your situation, the GH5 is capable of performing in low light. So at this point, it's pretty clear that the GH5 is a very good video camera. But in this day and age, being just a good video camera is not enough. Which brings me to the last category of this review, versatility. The GH5 is also capable of taking stills, and in my opinion, the still images look just about as good as any other stills camera. Here is a time-lapse comparison between the GH5 and the A7S. As you can see, both results are similar. If there is a difference in image quality, you'll most likely need to pixel peep. And then we have a bunch of handy features and modes built into the camera. There's support for anamorphic lenses, a built-in time-lapse mode, stop motion assistance, and 6K photo mode. And to top it all off, the GH5 is capable of shooting super slow motion in 1080p at up to 180 frames per second. This is by far the most versatile camera I've ever used. So, is the GH5 flawless? No, it's not. And for the record, I don't believe such a camera even exists. All the major camera manufacturers are part of an oligopoly, and they meet up once a year to discuss strategy. This is why certain features missing from one make and model of camera is always coincidentally available on another. One of the problems I encountered when I was still considering getting the GH5 was the lack of fast native lenses. You see, a native f2.8 aperture lens would just give me f2.8 amount of light. Whereas with the Speedbooster XL and a full-frame f2.8 lens, I will be getting 1 1/3 stop more light, effectively giving me f1.8 amount of light for an f2.8 aperture lens. To put things into perspective, all of the club shots would have had to be shot at ISO 3200 if I was using a native 2.8 aperture lens. And another problem is that you can't punch into 100% magnification to check your focus once you have started recording. You may punch in before, but not after you have hit the record button. This is by far the biggest problem I've encountered. And if I'm able to punch in to check focus on my A7S, there's just no reason why the GH5 cannot. And finally, we have the issue of hot pixels. This only happens during long exposures, specifically long exposures longer than 10 seconds. Before I shot stills with the GH5, I honestly had never really noticed hot pixels. If hot pixels were present in any of my long exposures in the past, it was clearly not obvious enough for me to notice. However, here on the GH5, it's very noticeable. Sure, you can turn on long exposure noise reduction, but that would double your exposure time. And sometimes you just cannot afford to waste that much time. So, in conclusion, the GH5 by itself is a good camera, but combine it with the Speedbooster XL and some fast full-frame lenses, and suddenly the GH5 becomes this amazing video and photo acquisition tool, being almost on the same level as some of its full-frame competitors. But here's the problem. You see, the cost of a GH5 and Speedbooster XL is more than a full-frame camera. So if your goal is to achieve a full-frame look on the GH5, then it would make more sense to just get a full-frame camera instead. Personally, I feel that regardless of whatever camera you get, as long as you have the eye for aesthetics, you will be able to achieve good shots. And the GH5 is a good camera. So if you are having problems achieving great shots, then the problem is most likely you or the lens you're using. Until next time, see ya!
What is that?
Uni.